World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Hemkaur Saroya, and on the show today, US President Donald Trump has said that the United States has complete control over the skies over Iran. He's called for the unconditional surrender from Iran and said that he knows exactly where Iran's supreme leader is hiding, but will not take him out yet. All this while, Israel says it has begun its strikes in Tehran, and Iran is claiming it has now used ballistic missiles. A lot of developments are coming in. It's a fast-evolving situation. We'll keep getting you the latest on that.
Well, as the world turns its attention towards West Asia, Russia has unleashed one of its deadliest attacks on Ukraine, killing at least 16 people in the capital. Now, this is, of course, as the group of 7 leaders, minus President Donald Trump on Tuesday, vowed greater support for Ukraine. We'll bring you the latest on that, but first, the headlines.
Iran's Revolutionary Guards say hypersonic missiles used to attack Israel in the latest wave of attack. IRGC says it hit Israel using Fatah-1 missiles.
Israeli military says it has begun a wave of strikes in Tehran shortly after issuing warning in District 18 of the city to leave the designated area.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hints at regime change in Iran again, says Israel creating conditions for it. Bibi also said current war could facilitate the Abraham Accords normalization agreements between Israel and the Arab states.
U.S. President Donald Trump issues stern warning to Iran, says U.S. is not to take Iranian Supreme Leader out, but knows where is Khamenei hiding. Warns his patience is a wearing thing, calls for unconditional surrender.
U.S. State Department says that the embassy in Jerusalem will be closed till Friday, that's the 20th of June, amid escalations between Israel and Iran.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral meeting with a Canadian counterpart and host McCartney at the ongoing G7 summit. Modi says confident of Ottawa and New Delhi making progress in many areas.
The United States has condemned a Russian drone and missile attack on Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, that killed at least 10 people, including 1 American.
More legal roadblocks for the U.S. president after a federal judge issues nationwide injunction to block Trump's passport policy against transgender Americans, restricting genders to biological binaries.
Oil prices surged over 4% as Israel-Iran tensions escalate, and a tanker collision near the Strait of Hormuz raises supply fears despite no major disruption so far. Market jitters drive a new geopolitical premium.
Top seed Carlos Alcaraz gets his grass court campaign up and running. The reigning French Open champion battles past Adam Walton at the Queen's Club Championships.
Ayatollah Khamenei, tweeted almost every day, "Death to Israel."
I want to see no nuclear weapon in Iran.
Now, the escalating Iran-Israel conflict puts the United States in a precarious position.
Now, it's facing intense pressure to intervene, even as it seeks to avoid another costly entanglement in West Asia. At the heart of this dilemma is the question, will America be drawn into the Iran-Israel war?
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump convened a high-level National Security Council meeting on Tuesday that lasted for over an hour.
Hours before the meeting, Trump had said that the U.S. has complete control over the skies over Iran. He called for unconditional surrender from Iran and said he knows exactly where Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei is hiding, but will not take him down yet.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, and I'm quoting him here, Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than good old USA. He hailed the use of US-made weaponry, although without explicitly mentioning Israel. Trump's remark comes hours after he said that he wants to end the Israel-Iran war and not go for ceasefire.
Now, the U.S. Embassy in Israel struck by an Iranian missile on Monday. The first strike on an American diplomatic facility in this conflict points at escalation concern bigger than ever before. Though at least so far the U.S. has spoken of restraint, there's also no denying that powerful forces are pushing America closer to deeper involvement.
First, Israel's call. Prime Minister Netanyahu has formally requested U.S. military support to target Iran's deeply buried Fordo uranium enrichment site. Israeli officials confirmed that they lack the capability to destroy the facility independently. Secondly, there is mounting domestic political pressure on President Trump from within his own party. Former Vice President Mike Pence stated that if Israel needs U.S. help to destroy Iran's nuclear program, the U.S. should be prepared to do it, calling Israel its most cherished ally.
Republican senators and hawks in Washington have urged Trump to go all in, including providing bombs or flying with Israel, and not to be missed the direct attacks on U.S. interests, such as the attack on the embassy in Tel Aviv. Now, looking forward, Tehran could also attack international shipping in the Gulf of Red Sea, triggering a global energy crisis and potentially forcing U.S. intervention.
But the U.S. entering the conflict, it carries immense dangers. Iran has vowed retaliation against any country aiding Israel. About 40,000 U.S. troops in West Asia with their bases, embassies and naval vessels face immediate missile attacks from Iran or its proxies. If Iran feels its regime is existentially threatened, it might accelerate its nuclear program to develop a weapon, leading to an even more dangerous security landscape and an economic fallout, of course, that would have repercussions for the world. The Strait of Hormuz, which is a crucial choke point for 20% of the world's oil, it could become a war zone, causing energy prices to spike and destabilizing global markets.
Now, tensions simmer and Israel presses forward. And the risk of the regional war spiraling out of control with potential U.S. involvement remains dangerously real. This crisis could very well define President Trump's second term.
All right, for more on this, we're now joined by Asha Castleberry, U.S. National Security and Foreign Policy expert. She's a former senior advisor, Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs at the U.S. Department and former Kuwait desk officer at the U.S. Army Central. Thank you so much for joining us on WION The World is One.
Thank you.
Of course, now we've been hearing the statements that have been coming out of the United States, with U.S. President Donald Trump first saying that the United States now has complete control over the skies of Iran. In a response to that, we saw that Iran says that it has launched some missile attacks over Iran, saying that it has control over its skies still, which seems to be, of course, a direct response to Trump's comments. Also, we are hearing that he wants absolute surrender. That being said, one, how do you see the role of the United States in this conflict?
Well, United States is definitely interested in a ceasefire, pretty much achieving peace between the two, making sure that diplomacy is being restored. Unfortunately, there's going to be some struggles or difficulties along this way because compared to the conflict from last year versus this year, this is definitely more escalatory. And on top of that, the issues involving Iranians' nuclear ambition or program right now is looking a lot more closer in terms of becoming a nuclear state. And this is why the conflict initiated, where you had Israel targeting nuclear facilities. So I must say the United States, they're going to try aggressively to make sure that there's a ceasefire as soon as possible because it is the current administration's strategic interest to, end this conflict.
Right, and also, you are a former Kuwait desk officer, and maybe it'd be interesting to hear this from you. Now, Netanyahu has claimed that the current war could facilitate the Abraham Accords normalization agreement between Israel and Arab states. Meanwhile, Qatar's spokesperson, and Qatar has said, foreign ministry has said and warned that Israel's action would have very dire repercussions for the region. What do you make of these statements? They seem to be contradictory.
Well, looking at the President Trump's visit to the region prior to the conflict, there was a lot that played out with regards to GCC states, and there was a strategic interest as far as looking into expanding the Abraham Accords, making sure that there was more peace between Israel and Arab states. So what you're seeing now that is being played out is that is harder to maintain right now as we're dealing with Iran. So, of course, with regards to statements, they're going to conflict because this is a challenging moment right now for GCC states and other Arab countries that are part of the Abraham Accords, and they're trying to figure out how do we bring both countries to the table in terms of looking at it as a balancing approach.
Right now, speaking of escalation as well, we know the situation in West Asia remains tense at the moment, and that's a gross understatement as well. We've also said that Trump has said that he knows exactly where Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei is hiding, but will not take him out yet. And of course, we've also heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when he was asked whether or not that could lead to further escalation, where he said this will not escalate this conflict, it will end it. So how do you assess these statements?
Also, I would like to just add to that. Khamenei has also replied saying that we must give a strong response to a terrorist Zionist regime. We will show the Zionists no mercy. This comes after Trump had warned that he might take out Khamenei, but not as of now.
Well, looking at the situation right now, in the beginning, Israel actually successfully targeted the leadership within the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So they have the capabilities to do so. I think with regards to the language that is being promoted, it's a way to build an informational deterrence as a way to bring Iran to the table and try to achieve a ceasefire. So with regards to being offensive or aggressive, I think it's just a tactic to say, if we continue this, we will look into targeting key leadership. And the fall of a key leader like that is definitely significant within Iran. I think, if anything, will create more instability within Iran, and then create more malign activities that will proliferate throughout the region. So right now, I think the strategic interest between Israel and the United States is to deter Iran, bring to the table, achieve a ceasefire, and then a pathway to peace between the two countries.
All right. Well, Ms. Castleberry, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this.
Thank you.
Well, the ongoing exchange between the two warring countries reveals grinding depletion.
Iran's missile onslaught pierces Iron Dome and drains Israeli interceptors, while Israel's surgical strikes erase Iran's launch systems. The tit-for-tat is not just destructive, it's a war of attrition, testing both arsenals' limits. Here's a report.
Missiles streak across the sky, lighting up the fifth night of relentless warfare. Israel's defenses are pushed to the brink as Iran unleashes wave after wave. First come the sirens. Then the projectiles. War machine grinds on. Israel says its airstrikes have destroyed a third of Iran's long-range missile launchers and killed top commanders.
We have eliminated Iran's security leadership, including 3 chiefs of staff, the commander of their air force, 2 heads of intelligence services, 2 of which were killed yesterday, the army and the Revolutionary Guards. We have struck their chief of operations. We are eliminating them, one after the other.
Iran is now adapting to new tactics, firing salvos of missiles mixed with cheap decoys, forcing Israel to guess which are real and which are not. Each time the Iron Dome lights up the night, Israel's arsenal of interceptors shrinks, and the price tag climbs higher. The numbers are staggering. Israel is spending nearly $1 billion every day on its war efforts. Every Iron Dome interceptor costs up to $150,000, while Arrow and David Sling missiles run into millions per shot. Iran's decoys and low-cost rockets, some as cheap as $5,000, are designed to overwhelm these defenses, draining Israel's stockpiles and emptying its coffers. Yet the attrition is mutual. Israeli jets have pounded Iranian launch sites, reducing Tehran's missile firepower. But Israeli armed forces are still able to fire multiple salvos every day. Each attack still brings terror and destruction.
All our houses were destroyed. All our cars were destroyed. We went through terror here. No one thought it would happen. And it happened to us too.
Iran now supplements its shrinking missile arsenal with drones and cruise missiles, seeking to stretch Israel's defenses even thinner. This is a battle of who can take more punishment, both militarily and economically. Israel is eroding Iran's offensive capabilities, but Iran is effectively depleting Israel's defensive arsenal and driving up its war costs exponentially. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, Qatar has issued a strong rebuke of Israel's recent strike on Iranian nuclear facilities, calling this move reckless and dangerous.
Now, speaking at a press conference in Qatar's capital, Doha, Foreign Ministry spokesperson warned that Israel's actions would have very dire repercussions for the region. He further warned that if these escalations don't cease, there would be negative repercussions, and called for all parties to resolve the disputes through diplomatic means. Qatar, which has long played a mediating role, says the escalation as an uncalculated measure that risks undermining fragile progress in the regional diplomacy.
What we have to emphasize when we are talking about the waters of the Gulf, it's the main source of water for all of us here in the region. It's also the maritime way for, as I said, 30% of the world's fuel and fertilizer, 25% of the world's natural gas. So we cannot remain ambiguous to this. We have to condemn very clearly, and the international community has to make it very clear that any targeting of nuclear facilities, any targeting of fuel or energy facilities in this region would have ramifications that are unknown.
Now, a signal of more shockers in store on Israel's part in the Iran-Israel conflict.
Israel's ambassador to the US says his country still has some surprises up its sleeve in its fight against Iran.
Ambassador Yitzhak says that the full scope of Israel's recent actions against Iran has not yet been revealed, noting that there's a lot that's still possible. He even says new war offensives to come will make the Beeper operation of September last year seem little and simple.
For context, the beeper operation last year involved detonating thousands of Hezbollah beepers and walkie-talkies. Many Hezbollah fighters were injured in a complex, years-long intelligence effort in this.
Now, in an interview to Merit TV in Israel, Ambassador letter also reveals that Mossad operations used on the first night of the attack included a drone base Israel built on Iranian soil. He describes Israel's bombing of Iran as the war to end wars and the war to engender peace in West Asia, and that there's no pressure from the U.S. to stop the fighting.
Not to be missed, however, is Ambassador Leter's bid to tone down the bombast. He steps back to say that Israel is open to a negotiated end to the conflict with Iran, even as he insists that complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program is going to be a key condition. And as the world turned its attention towards West Asia, Russia unleashed one of its most deadly attacks on its neighbor.
Now, Kyiv's darkest night in months, that is 16 dead, over 100 injured, and entire apartment blocks reduced to rubble. Now, this is a ground report on how the new attack is shattering the fragile calm and leaving the Ukrainian capital gasping for breath. Take a look.
This is the moment a drone struck a building in Kyiv. The night sky over Kyiv erupted in fire and terror. A deadly Russian onslaught unleashed a barrage of missiles and drones. For over 9 harrowing hours, the city endured a relentless barrage as hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles screamed through the night, their ominous whirring abruptly punctuated by thunderous explosions.
It was probably the most hellish night in my memory for our neighborhood. It is very difficult to imagine what the local people whose homes were damaged are going through right now.
This is the aftermath. Entire floors collapsed, flattened into dust. Rescue crews hauling victims from smoking wreckage. Among them, a man clasping his cat as he walks across the rubble.
It was very loud and scary. We got out in time and the rescue team arrived. Our door was jammed. The rescue team came and opened the door for us.
I was asleep. There was a loud bang. The window was smashed and glass rained down on me.
This attack, one of the deadliest in recent memory, comes as Russia escalates its campaign to break Ukraine's spirit launching hundreds of drones and missiles in a calculated attempt to overwhelm air defenses before unleashing the full force of its arsenal. On the front lines of Sumy and Dnipro, heavy fighting continues. Ukrainian forces claim to have stopped the latest Russian onslaught, but Moscow claims its troops are still advancing. Ukrainian President Zelensky calls the latest Russian attacks as pure evil. He would be heading to Canada to attend the G7 meeting, but he won't be able to meet US President Donald Trump, who has left the meet. Zelensky is urging G7 leaders to provide more backing for the war against Russia. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
But don't go anywhere. We have lots lined up on the other side of World DNA. On the other side, we have some global news from the sidelines of the G7 summit in Kananaskis. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Canadian Prime Minister McCartney. They had a bilateral meet. We'll be getting you all the latest from that on the other side.
Japan is grappling with fresh fears over a deadly tick-borne virus. We'll be getting you all the details on that as well. Stay tuned.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted almost every day, "Death to Israel."
I want to see no nuclear weapon in Iran.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. Let's get started with the headlines first.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard say hypersonic missiles used to attack Israel in the latest wave of attack. IRGC says it hit Israel using Fatah 1 missiles.
Israeli military says it has begun a wave of strikes in Tehran shortly after issuing a warning in District 18 of the city to leave the designated area.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hints at regime change in Iran again, says Israel creating conditions for it. He also said current war could facilitate the Abraham Accords normalization agreements between Israel and Arab states.
US President Donald Trump issues stern warning to Iran, says US is not to take Iranian Supreme Leader out but knows where Khamenei is hiding. Warns his patience is wearing thin, calls for unconditional surrender.
U.S. State Department says that its embassy in Jerusalem will be closed till Friday, June 20th. Amid escalations between Israel and Iran.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral meet with Canadian counterpart and host McCartney at the ongoing G7 summit. Modi says confident of Ottawa and New Delhi making progress in many areas.
The United States has condemned a Russian drone and a missile attack on Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, that killed at least 10 people, including one American.
More legal roadblocks for the US president after a federal judge issues nationwide injunction to block Trump's passport policy against transgender Americans, restricting gender to biological binaries.
Oil prices surged over 4% as Israel-Iran tensions escalate, and a tanker collision near the Strait of Hormuz raises supply fears. Despite no major disruptions so far, market jitters drive a new geopolitical premium.
Asia-Pacific markets slipped on Wednesday as rising Israel-Iran tensions and Trump's calls for Iran's unconditional surrender spooked investors. Wall Street closed lower ahead of the Fed's rate decision.
Top seed Carlos Alcaraz gets his grass court campaign up and running. The reigning French Open champion battles past Adam Moulton at the Queen's Club Championships. And while Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Canadian Prime Minister McCartney and other world leaders on the sidelines of the G7 summit.
The bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Carney witnessed both leaders stress on the significance of India-Canada relations. Carney welcomed Prime Minister Modi at the G7 summit, saying it's a great honor to host the Indian Prime Minister. The Canadian Prime Minister said that the two countries can do together on various areas from AI development to the fight against terrorism.
Excellency, Prime Minister, it's a great honor to host you at the G7. India has been coming to the G7, I believe, since 2018 in Biarritz with our French partners, and it's a testament to the importance of your country, to your leadership, and to the importance of the issues that we look to tackle together, from energy security, from the energy transition that you're helping to lead, to the future of artificial intelligence, to the fight that we have against transnational repression, against terrorism, against other factors, and the work that we can do together.
And while hoping the G7 summit will prove to be a positive turn for India-Canada relationship, Prime Minister Modi echoed Carney's sentiments and said that the two countries should achieve a win-win cooperation in several areas. And this marks the Indian Prime Minister's first visit to Canada in 10 years.
अनेक प्रकार से बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है। कनाडा की अनेक कंपनियों का भारत में निवेश है। भारत के लोगों का भी कनाडा की धरती पर बहुत बड़ा निवेश है। लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों को समर्पित कनाडा और भारत मिलकर के लोकतंत्र को मजबूत करना होगा, मानवता को मजबूत करना होगा, हमारे रिसोर्सेज का ऑप्टिमम यूटिलाइजेशन कर करके मानव जात के कल्याण के काम में कैसे ला सकते हैं, उस दिशा में हम प्रयास करते रहेंगे।
Now, in the bilateral meeting between the two leaders, it comes after ties between India and Canada were severed over the killing of pro-Khalistani leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was an India-designated terrorist in Canada, and then Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had accused Indian agents of being involved in the killing. After the incident, both countries expelled their diplomats, significantly cut down engagement as well.
Now, on Prime Minister Modi and Canadian Prime Minister's meeting, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said that the two leaders agreed to restore their relationship, beginning with restoring high commissioners at New Delhi and Ottawa. They also spoke on resuming discussions on trade.
The Prime Ministers agreed to take calibrated steps to restore stability to this very important relationship. And the first of these steps that was agreed on was to restore High Commissioners to each other's capitals at an early date. Other diplomatic steps will follow in due course. The two Prime Ministers also agreed to resume senior and working level mechanisms and discussions in a host of areas related to trade.
Now, he met French President Emmanuel Macron and said that both India and France are working closely for the well-being of the planet.
Prime Minister Modi met British PM Keir Starmer and termed their discussions exceptional.
Prime Minister Modi also met Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum and congratulated her on her historic election victory.
Well, Prime Minister Modi also met South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, who took office early this month.
And then called on Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, his friend. He shared what he called an outstanding conversation with the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, and said that the two countries are committed to speaking about issues that matter to the global South.
Now, Prime Minister Modi also met President of the EU Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. The leaders discussed various aspects of strengthening the cooperation between India and the EU in a host of sectors.
And he also met his Italian counterpart, Giorgia Meloni, who said India and Italy are linked by a great friendship. Prime Minister Modi said that their friendship will continue to get stronger and benefit their people. Now, global financial crime watchdog, the Financial Action Task Force, has issued a statement condemning the April 22nd Pahalgam terror attack.
The FATF said that the terror attack could not have taken place without money and the means to move funds between terrorist supporters.
Now, the statement reportedly marks the third time that FATF has condemned a terrorist attack in a decade. Reports suggest that the FATF is likely to release a report next month, which for the first time will include state sponsorship as a separate source of funding of terror.
Now, back in May, India reportedly pushed FATF to add arch rival Pakistan back to its grey list. The FATF identifies jurisdictions with weak measures to combat money laundering and terrorist financing in 2 public documents that are issued 3 times a year. Reports say Pakistan took massive loss to its GDP worth $38 billion because of FATF decision to retain the country on its grey list.
Now, FATF documents are of two kinds. Blacklist requires jurisdictions to apply enhanced due diligence. In the most serious cases, countries are called upon to apply countermeasures to protect the international financial system from the ongoing money laundering, terrorist financing and proliferation financing risks emanating from the country.
The grey list identifies countries actively working with the FATF to address strategic deficiencies in their regimes to counter money laundering and terrorist financing. When FATF places a jurisdiction under increased monitoring, it means that the nation has committed to resolve the identified strategic deficiencies within agreed timeframes and is subject to increased monitoring.
Now, reports say that the FATF is set to release a comprehensive analysis of terrorist financing next month. It will reportedly host a webinar to help public and private sectors understand the risks and stay alert to emerging threats.
Well, oil has been in the line of fire ever since the Israel-Iran conflict began.
Now, after surging over 7% on the first day, oil prices have been on a steady climb.
Now, prices surged over 4% on Tuesday. The gains come despite no significant disruption to oil flows so far. However, a fire caused by an Israeli strike led Iran to partially suspend gas production at the South Pars field, that is one of the largest in the world. Israel also targeted Iran's Shahran oil depot, adding to concerns in the market.
The conflict has revived fears of disruption around the Strait of Hormuz, a vital passage for nearly a fifth of global oil shipments. A recent collision between 2 oil tankers in the region amid reported electronic interference underscored this risk. However, analysts say the likelihood of the strait being closed remains low, as Iran depends heavily on oil revenue and the US is focused on keeping oil prices and inflation down.
Now, while geopolitical risks drive up prices, fundamentals point to stable supply. The International Energy Agency trimmed its global oil demand forecast by 20,000 barrels per day and raised its supply outlook by 200,000 barrels per day.
Now, analysts estimate a security premium of up to $10 per barrel is now priced in. Meanwhile, investors are also tracking central bank moves. Bets on surging oil prices are at an all-time high. And as tensions mount, the prices are only expected to climb further. Now, growing global volatility has sparked renewed rally in gold.
Now, the yellow metal is increasingly replacing the US dollar in global reserve portfolios, with central banks around the world expected to ramp up purchases in the coming months.
Now, World Gold Council survey shows that 95% of central banks expected global gold reserves to rise over the next year, with a record 43% planning to increase their own holdings. This comes as 73% of the respondents foresee a moderate to significant decline in the US dollar holdings over the next 5 years. With increased interest in currencies like the euro and renminbi, the US dollar index has already fallen 9% year to date, driven by rising geopolitical tensions, trade war concerns, and anxiety over America's fiscal outlook.
Gold prices have climbed nearly 27% so far this year, repeatedly hitting all-time highs. The rally has been fueled by central bank purchases, inflows into gold ETFs, and growing expectations of a Federal Reserve rate cut. Now, Citi, however, is dialing back its short and medium-term outlooks. It now sees gold at $3,300 per ounce over the next 3 months, down from prior $3,500 forecast. Now, analysts say the April peak around $3,500 may have marked the top as the gold market deficit nears its peak and investment demand stabilizes.
Now, looking ahead, Citi's base case scenario with a 60% probability sees gold dipping below $3,000 an ounce by late 2025 or early 2026, driven by easing investor demand and improving global growth sentiment. The so-called Trump put tied to pro-growth policy shifts ahead of the 2026 elections may also weigh on gold. The more plausible bull case exists where geopolitical flare-ups or fears of stagflation reignite demand. Even in weaker scenarios, Citi notes that investment demand relative to mine supply remains historically high.
And Japan is grappling with the fresh fears over a deadly tick-borne virus.
Now, after a veterinarian died in what's believed to be the country's first suspected case of animal-to-human transmission of severe fever with SFTS. First, let's explain what SFTS is. It's a tick-borne infectious disease characterized by high fever, low platelet count, and low white blood cell count. It's caused by SFTS virus, a type of flavivirus. The disease can also cause gastrointestinal symptoms. The fatality rate varies from 10 to 30% globally.
Now, according to the Japan Veterinary Medical Association, the vet whose identity has not been revealed developed symptoms after treating a sick cat in central Japan this May. He was hospitalized but died days later. The autopsy found no signs of a tick bite, and notably, none of his colleagues or the cat's owner have shown any symptoms. Japan's National Institute of Infectious Diseases has now urged veterinarians to wear protective gear, including masks, gloves, and eye shields, while handling animals or carcasses. Now, authorities are still investigating the case to confirm whether the virus was transmitted directly from the cat to the vet.
While cases of SFTS linked to the pets are rare, the incident has sparked renewed warnings about the risk posed by infected domestic animals, especially as tick season peaks between spring and autumn. Officials are advising the public to use tick repellents, wear long sleeves and trousers in grassy areas, and take extra precautions when handling sick or stray animals. Now, former Premier League referee David Coote has been charged by the English FA over derogatory comments he made about former Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp.
The 42-year-old was sacked by PGMOL, England's referee body, in December after a video from 2020 circulated on social media where Coote was heard making insulting remarks about Klopp in Liverpool. And one of those remarks referenced Klopp's German nationality, and the FA says the amount to an aggravated breach of its rules. If found guilty, Coote is likely to face a financial penalty, but the FA has not announced a timeline for his response. He's also been charged under Rule E3.1 for acting in an improper, abusive, or insulting manner.
However, Coote has been cleared of separate gambling misconduct claims. That case stemmed from an allegation that he had discussed issuing a yellow card to a player before the match. Coote had strongly denied the charge, calling it false and defamatory.
Well, the legend Sir Paul McCartney's music has defined generations.
From Beatlemania to solo success, his legacy is still unfolding one iconic song at a time. As the star celebrates his 83rd birthday, let's take a look back at his incredible journey. Born on the 18th of June 1942 in England, McCartney found his calling early. As a teenager, he joined John Lennon's band, which went on to become the most influential music group in history, known as the Beatles.
MACCA penned some of the greatest songs ever written, from Let It Be to Hey Jude and many more. The band dominated global charts, setting records that still stand today. By the time they disbanded in 1970, they had forever changed music history.
Now, after the Beatles, the 83-year-old formed wings with former partner Linda McCartney, creating hits like Silly Love Songs and Live and Let Die. His solo career further proved his musical genius, blending pop, rock and experimental styles with unmatched lyricism.
The music icon was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II in 1997 for his services to music. He is a two-time Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, once with the Beatles and again as a solo artist. With over 60 gold discs and sales exceeding 100 million albums, he is among the most successful composers and performers of all time.
The legend has faced some controversies as well, from bitter fallings out with the bandmates to high-profile legal battles over music rights, including the famous dispute to reclaim the Beatles' catalogue. He has time and again been in the limelight.
Well, today the singer shows no signs of slowing down. He is touring globally, releasing new albums and even collaborating with younger artists like Rihanna and Kanye West. He also released children's books and best-selling lyric memoir that takes fans inside his creative process.
Award-winning filmmaker Danny Boyle and actors Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Jodie Comer, Ralph Fiennes and Alfie Williams posed for photographs in London ahead of the release of their highly anticipated film 28 years later. Take a look.